forward to our next session, the business case for sustainability. And joining us for this session, we have with us Mr. Bradley Busetto, CEO, SDG Impact Ventures. We also have with us Mr. Dave Rouse, CEO, Carbon Click, and Mr. Hemal Uchat, partner, PwC, specializing on ESG. And joining us as the moderator for this session, we have Mr. Chaitanya Kalia, who is a partner at EY and is a national leader for climate change and sustainability services. He has been working in this area in EY for over 21 years. His expertise covers ESG, decarbonization, and sustainability-related policy matters. He's a civil engineer with a postgraduate qualification in environment and hydroinformatics from Netherlands, and he's also an alumni of the Harvard Business School. I'm going to request our moderator, Mr. Chaitanya Kalia, to kindly take over.
Thank you, Samira. Thank you so much. It's been so much pleasure to be part of this conversation. And I really thanks the organizing committee of TIE to put this sustainability related event together. And it's day 2. I've been already hearing a lot of great reviews about this event. So very much pleased to be part of this conversation. And I'm even more happy that we have a very, very august panel here, and we look forward to some absolutely interesting discussion today. So what I am going to do, I'll invite our panelists and give to begin with a small intro about them. The first one on this panel, we have Bradley. Bradley has been amazing guy. He has been, working with SDG right now, working as a CEO of SDG Impact Japan, and it's a kind of a dedicated sustainable investment firm in Japan. And in his earlier avatars, he has been a director of UNDP's Global Center for Technology, Innovation and Sustainability, which is based out of Singapore. He has also spent as an entrepreneur, areas as a fintech, agri-tech, clean tech, and probably several other aspects. He has also been an UN ambassador to Armenia and has been taking up some leadership roles in banking and consulting. He stays in California and also is an alumni of Stanford University. So welcome to you, Bradley. If you can say hello to us and so that we know you are around and video everything is working fine. I believe you have to unmute your video, Bradley.
Apologies. Thanks for the great introduction, and delighted to be here and be part of this Global Sustainability Summit. The timing is perfect and great panel. I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thanks a lot.
Wonderful. Look forward to learn so many things from you today. Our next, distinguished panelist is Hemal. Hemal Uchat is a deals partner at PwC. And he has multiple over 2 decades of experience in variety of M&A transaction, cross-border investment, listing, section and planning, etc. And he has spent a lot of time in dealing with ESG related deals, ESG related strategy, supporting clients in embedding ESG, looking forward what kind of KPIs are making sense to them. And several of his clients are across the spectrum and really helping all of them throughout their value chain. He has also supported clients in terms of responsible investment, due diligence, and ultimately helping them to increase their overall value proposition. Really look forward, Heman, to see how our audience can benefit from your value creation kind of a proposition. So again, would you like to say hi to us, open your video and see we all are good?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Chaitanya, and very good morning to the entire members of this summit. Very happy to share, my experience and understand from other panel members as well as from the audience in terms of how sustainability is gaining importance and discuss some of the aspects around business case around sustainability. So thank you so much, Chaitanya, and look forward to discuss with the panel.
Thank you, and most welcome, Hemal. Our third panelist today is Dave. Dave Rouse is CEO of Carbon Click. It's an amazing company, works on providing offset in a seamless manner, and doing that with people as well as business. In his previous avatar, he has been a director and chair of 3PM Limited. It's a privately held New Zealand-based entity that works with autonomous workflows. So we look forward to learn a lot from Dave in terms of, how the automation and carbon offset. I have seen you have an amazing app, probably someday look forward to using it. And also you have worked earlier as a NZ Skin Health and founder, trustee and treasurer for Sea Cleaner Trust. Dave is an alumni of the University of Auckland in New Zealand. So hello to you, Dave, and maybe you would like to unmute and open your video and say hello to all of us.
Thanks very much. It's an absolute honour to be here and learn and contribute to the innovations that are going to help us out of the current problems that we're in today. So I'm very excited to be on the panel with such an esteemed group. Thank you.
Great. So if you guys are okay, I'll start our panel discussion. Once again, for all of us and for the audience, we are going to discuss about a very, very significantly important topic, which is, still someone like me who has spent all my entire career in this area, still struggle to find a right answer. And that is about business case for sustainability. Start at one end, should there be a business case of sustainability? And on the other end, is there a business case of sustainability? So in between, there are various point of view, opinions, and would really get your experience and view on that. So if it is okay, I will start first with Bradley. You have amazing experience working with UNDP and several other organizations. What is in your view when you look at on one end United Nations and the other end the entrepreneurs? What should be their view on the sustainability? How do you look at sustainability? What it means for all of us?
Well, I look forward to, thanks. And again, it's great to be part of this conversation on really the most compelling questions and challenges of our time, to be honest. So I look forward to the day when we're not talking about sustainability as a market trend or a market niche or a new phenomenon, but rather just the way it is. And so for me, at least, it's a no-brainer that the business case is there. That there's market pressures and market regulations pushing downward. There's consumer sentiment and citizens that just want to live more sustainable. But I mean, to be really specific about it, I mean, sustainability can open up new business opportunities. It can future-proof your business. Can help you manage risk more effectively. But I think a really good way of thinking about it for any type of company is to think about sustainability as innovation, right? As sort of improving and your business and coming up with new business models, new products, new services that can beat the market. So if you think about it in that way, it becomes a much sort of simpler, clearer investment internally too. So I can go on and on about the different business cases for it, but from an entrepreneur's point of view, there's huge market demand, I think, and then that's why we've set up, I think, the first dedicated sustainable finance or sustainable investment firm in Japan, because we think Japan's at a particular tipping point. But also, just generally, we like to focus on entrepreneurs and early stage ventures. Because we think that that's where a lot of the transformation can come around sustainable technologies, biotech and deep tech and of all kinds. But maybe I'll start there just to put out the general hypothesis that if you think about it as just long-term value creation and just good common sense for the future of everybody, and if you think about it in terms of sustainability as innovation, then it becomes a lot clearer, I think, business case for any size business, whether it's an entrepreneur or a larger company.
Absolutely, Bradley. Could not agree with you more. When we look at the long-term value created by the business around sustainability, I think that's in days to come, a lot more actions are likely to be seen. Thank you so much. I think I'll move to Hemal. Hemal, you have spent a lot of time in a very large, professional services firm. Those companies, I believe, give a lot of advice to the company in terms of, what they should be doing in terms of sustainability. What kind of, impact have you seen? Do you see that, sustainability overall is helping those companies to give some sort of an advantage, let's say in terms of competitive advantage or any other kind of thing, so that they should consider sustainability in terms of, overall value proposition?
Sure, Chaitanya. I think I would just start with a statement which, way back in 1987, one of the reports said that the business should be conducted to meet the needs of present, but at the same time, it should not damage or impact, the resources available for the future generations.
Absolutely.
So the entire, the concept of sustainability is around how, we continue to meet the needs of present generation, and going forward the businesses continue as usual. So in terms of business case and for sustainability, I would say that yes, the points which I would make as a statement is sustainability would create a competitive advantage, and the entire transformation journey of companies, whether small or large, into a sustainable product, process, or technology would give them a valuation edge over others. Since I'm coming from the deal space, I would say that the entire narrative around sustainability is how to cater to the needs of stakeholders, whether it's your shareholders, investors, your employees, your customers, etc. In terms of sustainability aspects, I would say yes. If there is a large company, they would have resources, capability, R&D, investment pool for R&D, talent pool, access to data, and various other things. And large companies probably can create impact in the market on sustainability factors. But the question which I keep on getting is how a smaller companies can also make an impact. So smaller companies also probably they have a niche in the marketplace, and smaller companies are more nimble footed. I would say for smaller companies, they can make an impact with their unique products, with their unique ideas, cater to the customers, and then come out with more specific products which are more sustainable for a longer period of time. I mean, if the businesses cater to this, what we have seen is, yes, they have a better performance. They have opportunities to cater to the newer markets, as Bradley mentioned. They have access to talent pool in terms of retention of capital, and going forward they can create better value for the stakeholders. So that's briefly, Chaitanya, I would say, how the sustainability aspects would create an impact.
Absolutely right, Hemal, and I really relate. I'm very glad you stated that, very first definition of sustainability from Rutland Commission, and nothing much has changed, probably some nomenclature. And I see that sustainability is today more or less like ESG, but still we are dealing about the concept of people, planet, and profit. Profit is a bit, kind of being looked upon as a governance aspect, but fundamentals don't change really. So thank you so much for your, opening comments. I move to, Dave. Thank you so much, Dave, for being party to this conversation. You have so much of experience working with companies who really want to, offset their credit. They are looking forward to, take services of your organization. But let me ask you very, very fundamental question to begin with. What do you see? I mean, is it kind of a tick box exercise when the company approach to you, specifically the larger companies? Or how do you see the difference between the individual approaching you with a large company? What are their intention? What are they thinking about? How some of these aspects can grow tremendously? So what are your opening views on that?
Yeah, so individuals are probably well aligned to the enterprises in this space, but enterprises traditionally take a long time to move. But the enterprises that are able to become agile and address this quickly are winning the hearts of their customers, their consumers, when they're done right. There's a lot of greenwashing out there, and consumers are becoming wiser to it. So it's a case of business owners that are doing this for the right reasons, that are taking genuine steps, that are being honest about where they're at in the journey. We see them as being rewarded very well by consumers. With the smaller enterprises and individuals, it's sometimes difficult without the resource of sustainability experts in-house. And this is where the need for simplification and technology to build trust and transparency and tools to help a business to understand and individuals to understand what the impact of their products and operations are that they're producing or buying. I mean, we're all moving in the direction of a heightened awareness of sustainability and environmental impacts. It's been profound over the last probably 2 decades in particular. But, you know, we're running out of land for landfills, and we don't want to live in a rubbish tip, and we don't want our children to live in a rubbish tip. And the same has been a movement towards sustainability from greenhouse gases. You know, we've now seen with more and more certainty that this is a problem that we can't run away from anymore. And it's a problem like a nuclear chain reaction that continues to get worse and worse exponentially as time goes by. And now is the sense of urgency that we need to be acting with. None of us want for our children to be dealing with climate change, extreme weather, wildfires, sea level rises. It's also a humanity crisis for Pacific Island nations and low-lying island nations that are generally not the cause of global warming, but the first to be affected. So if a business is able to react quickly to those consumer demands, they're able to attract that business. And that's, I guess, why we exist, to try and make climate action simple and meaningful and trustworthy. Are you muted?
Yeah, thank you. So I completely believe that what we are doing and how our next generation is going to play out is definitely a significantly important role. In terms of mitigation, in terms of taking actions, you are involved in certain activity. So I just wanted to check with you if I'm allowed to ask a subsequent question directly with a kind of a short answer. How do you see that response? I mean, that was I was looking forward to. Yes, we believe all things we have to do, but when you're running an enterprise, which is, you know, so much focus on making the world a right place, what is the response that you receive from the businesses and the individual? That was the point.
The response from business has been much slower than individuals. Mm-hmm. So businesses are lagging a lot in this space, and you see some businesses that are taking the leadership position who are really gaining market share quickly. You've seen, I don't know if you've seen Allbirds shoes, for example. They were a startup in 2016 in a garage out of somebody in New Zealand. And 5 years later, just under 5 years later, they're listed on the NASDAQ index. Now, this is how quickly, if you're showing true leadership in this space and being honest about your efforts and showing genuine results, you're able to really quickly gain market share from those who are much slower to react. So we see big demand from the consumer side. But, the customers that we do have are winning big time from their competitors. And that's because most of their competitors are so slow to act in this space.
Absolutely. So hold on to that thought. I'm going to ask you more questions around what it means for the businesses who are adopting sustainability. But let me move on at this moment to Bradley. Bradley, in terms of your experience when you're working with, the companies who are, in say, kind of a fintech, agri-tech, those who are looking at, similarly acceleration in terms of the sustainability, what are the few things that they should look at? What would be your advice to them when you're looking, let's say, for example, as an investment to them? So you have seen probably both side of the equation as an entrepreneur as an investor. So what should be your advice to them, Bradley?
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to, I want to connect that to a point that Dave's making. And Dave's running a great company that we've taken a look at too. A really game-changing company that I know quite well.
Yeah, on his way to NASDAQ probably.
but I wanted to link your question to a point that he's made from his own experience, that it's the consumers that are driving this, right? More than governments or companies, right? And he made the point that enterprises are moving more slowly than consumers. So it's about what consumers want, right? And it's a structural shift, right? So I don't think it's a forever thing. I don't think that, and COVID has catalyzed this move for consumers and people's choices to move towards more sustainable products of all types, right? And thinking about sustainability more broadly, not just in terms of emissions, but rather also, like social equity and economic development too, in a much broader sense. And it's about retaining employees. So that there's all that consumer drive, all these consumer drivers of all of this. But so I guess the first advice is companies should think about what consumers want right now, and change accordingly. But I mean, one of the areas that I'm particularly passionate about and interested in is around innovations in food and agriculture. That gets directly to sustainability on this planet, and in Japan, particular issues around food waste, right? And so this is where you can really cite some interesting examples. And Dave mentioned, one company that's quickly blown up to, it's already on NASDAQ in New Zealand, but especially in the food waste space, there's some interesting companies that have grown really quickly. And like I think a lot of folks have heard about Appeal, the company that is based out of California, but now has gone more global, that has helps keep produce fresher longer, and so reduces a lot of food waste. I think that's just had a Series E round, like around $250 million. So that's one. There's another in that space called Footprints, that's already become sizable, that aims to replace plastics of all types in supermarkets with plant-based fiber. You could go on and on, but so there are some really great stories already in this space, right? It's making sense. So I guess, listen to the consumer demands, and more than anything else, I guess, would be my first advice. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And just be aware of what are these huge challenges around you, right? That present also huge opportunities, right? For the next technology or whatever.
That the spirit of entrepreneurship. Bradley, can I ask you a follow-on question on this? As an investor, how you distinguish that the activities around sustainability or ESG from a startup is genuine, it is going to make a difference, rather than some sort of, I don't want to use this word, but for the explanation purpose, some sort of a greenwash. Do you decide on some parameters, or how deeply you look at them to understand what they're doing?
Yeah, it's a super question. It's not always easy to do that, but we try to, I think it's the obvious answer is that we look for companies that are going to really grow and scale, but from a financial point of view, but also have impact too, right? But we're looking at both ends of this, right? Because we want them, to make real transformation happen. The company has to grow financially too, right? It can't just be a sort of mom and pop shop, and that's great. But we're looking at really game changing opportunities. That's what we're trying to find. So we from our company's point of view, we have our own bespoke sets of standards that are based on international standards of impact assessment and management, but also applying the UNDP's, the UN's new SDG impact standards too. I think we're among the first finance firms to really adopt those. So
Right.
we have our own methodology that we use to really do a sort of assessment first of potential portfolio companies. And then as we grow them, we'd like to grow them in terms of their impact as well as their financial performance too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bradley. And I think I'll ask some related question around this with the person who has done it on the ground. So Hemal, you have stated you have done a lot of the sustainability diligence or ESG due diligence. How much do you relate with what Bradley is saying? And in your experience, what is the advice or what is the level of preparation as a, let's say Series A startup company should do as against some of the very large enterprises? Do you have some view and advice to our listeners?
Yeah, so I would, maybe start with, total agreement with Bradley mentioned that actually it's all driven by consumers. In fact, one of the surveys which PwC conducted, it came out that 83% of the consumers, want to buy products from the companies which are driven by ESG. So the entire thing is, the entire narrative on sustainability is around, consumers, and it is their ask, to the enterprises to make products which are sustainable. From investor standpoint, I would say the first, question, and when we look at diligences, I would rather ask a question in terms of, how the profits are generated, instead of asking a question that how much profits are generated. So it's more about how a company is conducting its business as against the past performance or the current performance in terms of quantum of profits which is generated, and that would, in that question, once it is asked, that would give an insight to the investor in terms of whether the businesses are long-term driven or the short-term driven, and some of the issues or concerns would come up in the investing exercise. So that is something which one needs to look into at the time of investing exercise. I'm not sure whether that answers your question.
And if I might just jump in and add to that, just to comment on Hemal's point, I think you're absolutely right. The key thing is how, thank you, moderator. The key thing is how are profits generated, and then this is especially challenging with startups, right? There are lots of different impact standards now. Almost all of them have been designed for much larger, mature companies. And the PwCs and EYs of the world have done a lot of great assurance work for all these big companies too, right? But it's much harder to figure that out for startups that are changing their business models, almost on a daily basis. So what we really look for, to be more concrete, is intent, right? What is your business model? Is it inherently sustainable right now? What's your strategy? What's your intent? What's your mission? For a startup, at least, those are the key bits. And then you build out your KPIs for sustainability and for impact, I think, from that basis, right? But I think you don't want to get too bogged down with too many metrics right away with a startup.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
Correct.
But yeah, just wanted to add that.
So it's absolutely, Bradley. So it's all about just the intention and how the business is conducted, rather than just tick the box outcomes which one would look at. So that's very important. And typically for a startup, I think it's very important for any startup or organization to be more purpose-led. If the purpose is very clear, I mean, all the actions and decisions would fall out from the purpose-led activities which is embedded in the company. So, as I always say, the importance about product, process, and technology, whichever way, whichever business the startup is, the purpose has to be very clear, and the intention has to be very much, talking about, and then that's the journey a startup would, and that's what the investor would look at.
So let's hear from Dave. He is running enterprise and probably is looking for, as I kind of got a whiff that is looking for investment or investors. So Dave, what's your view? How you're preparing yourself for, let's say ESG related review? Are you following certain frameworks or it is inherent part of your organization? Or like Hemal says that if organization is running with a purpose, it makes a lot of sense. So would like to get your view, who is working on the grounds.
Yeah, so I mean, we're all about SDG 13, which is, avoiding climate change, but wider than that, our values extend to the wider UN SDG framework. And, we attract people that are values aligned and see that sense of urgency, no poverty, no hunger. Those are all factors which are affected dramatically by climate change anyway. So in a sense, what we're looking for with the carbon offsetting projects that we support and highlight, those projects carry multiple benefits for biodiversity and social outcomes far beyond just the carbon accounting. So we use the carbon as the currency by which we're measuring everything, but the impact flows far beyond that. And when it comes to attracting and retaining staff, we've been purpose-led from day one. So we've been able to, in a very tight labour market in New Zealand, we've been able to attract leaders in different fields very, very easily over competitors who are a little slower to pick up the sustainability core values.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I also want to get your view, since you talked about carbon offset and using it as a currency. What's your view? Do you think that this carbon as a currency, as a carbon markets, it's going to grow? And we are working and talking to a lot of startup ecosystem. Do you think ultimately it's going to be some sort of a connecting with the bitcoins and getting transacted world over? Do you have any view on that? It's a little early thinking, but still, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we head more towards triple bottom line profitability measurement, I think, or quadruple even, I think some of these currencies will start to be more measurable and more quantifiable. We're already seeing reef credits out of Australia for the restoration of the Great Barrier Reef. And these are other ways that we're testing our platform as well, to be able to provide that track, trace, transparency, as well as measurable impacts to offset any negative impacts that a company is having, because we know just about every activity that we do has an impact somewhere else.
So Bradley, you were saying something, probably you can chip in, and I want to, if possible, touch upon that. If that be the case, and there is a kind of a carbon offsets as a currency or as a mechanism to provide additional finance, how far that is possible? Should a startup organization or an entrepreneur depend on that kind of a flow of funds for their business model? So any view on that?
Well, maybe I actually wanted to go back to Dave's point about
sure, yeah,
his observation, his observation about attracting and retaining staff. I think that's a huge deal too, and McKinsey and others of their peers have reported on this, right? That in terms of attracting, retaining, compensating staff too, based on sort of SDG metrics or ESG metrics. It's made a difference. I mean, small sample size of our own business, but it's definitely made a difference in our attraction of staff, right? Being able to attract real financial luminaries to come work on sustainability, sustainable investments, and it's good to hear that.
I couldn't agree more, and I have seen there are statistics coming out where even the C-suite CEOs of the companies and they are taking a part of their compensation based on how they are performing on sustainability. So we absolutely agree. Even at the one spectrum, those kind of things are happening, and on the other spectrum, the employees are selecting those companies whose behavior, whose purpose is more sustainability driven.
Yeah,
so absolutely
more about their purpose. That's absolutely right. Yeah.
And any view on the point of view that I wanted to get across about this carbon markets and the carbon offsets being used as a currency, or we just pass this question?
My view, well, it is sure. If there are ways to make that market more, not liquid is the wrong word, but more fluid and more accessible, all the better, for sure. And to maybe de-link some unsustainability, let's say, reputations to Bitcoin and others too would also be good. But anything that makes that market better would be it and more accessible would be great. And interesting points too about like how to verify and trace. And I'm interested in sort of, eventually how can we use some of these technologies to verify and trace sustainability, right? And some of that's already being done, right? Like sustainable fashion, right? Using the blockchain to verify, the origin of things.
Absolutely.
We do that with food, with all sorts of things now. So there are other interesting angles here for sure to pursue, and maybe even verifying, like we're rolling out sustainability analytics reporting tools to sort of democratize sustainability analytics for as many companies as possible. But one angle we're thinking about is, eventually down the line, like how can we use the blockchain to even verify kind of ESG reporting or SDG reporting, and this is way out in the future, but maybe not that far out in the future, right?
No, it's already there. I completely agree. The sustainability analysis, use of blockchain for traceability, transparency, and world over, the regulations are coming up, more and more disclosure on the sustainability parameter that would be available for huge amount of data would be available for sustainability analytics. Absolutely. Very good point. Thank you so much. So Hemal, you have also experience in terms of investor, and there is a class of investor who are looking forward to the organization who make huge impact. So let's say kind of a impact investing. So I really want to get in the basics that what is that impact investing really means. That is not that all companies are making impact in some sense. So what is that some of the investor they call as a impact investor, what they're looking for? What is your view, and what would be your advice to someone like me or our listeners?
Yeah. So the entire narrative around sustainability and serving positively to environment factors as well as social factors is around that. So an impact investor would generally invest in companies which is having a positive impact on environment or social factors, and at the same time they're profit organizations. So it is not that sort of non-profit organizations, but they are into business model of generating profits and at the same time contributing positively to environment and social factors. So the entire community of impact investors are coming up, and in Indian context we have seen the recent 2020 and 2021, the investments into those companies which can create an impact have been at a high. The number of deals have gone up, the quantum of amount is increasing into into such companies which support this environment and social factors. So I would say that not worrying on profitability if an enterprise or a startup are more driven by purpose, if they can create a positive change, they may not worry in short term in terms of profitability, but drive through a larger goal of long term value creation. And the short term impacts, some of the financial ratios which we talk about in terms of ROCE, ROI, all of that, I think they all will be overcome gradually once they cater to this environment and social factors, once they cater to any of these 17 SDGs, and they would probably create value for the stakeholders. So briefly, any startups, catering to this, should not worry about capital. The investor fraternity is coming up, and they are looking for responsible investment into such enterprises.
And this responsible investment, the impact investment, do you have a view that the size of the pie on the overall investment is increasing? I've been told that a lot of pension funds, a lot of government supported funds, they are specifically focusing on some of these areas. So how someone should, if the pie is increasing, how someone should, access that if it is available? Yeah,
absolutely. So first, talking on the flow of or the supply of capital side, and these stats are very much clear. It's available. There are more than 4,000, signatories to principles of responsible investment organization who have committed to invest in organizations which are driven by ESG matrices, and the total investment outlay which is from this investors is more than $100 trillion. There are also statistics which are available that the assets under management for specific ESG enterprises is also going up day by day, and by 2025 it is going to touch more than $50 trillion. So the supply of capital towards this responsible companies is increasing. Now, as far as enterprises are concerned, I think simple steps, when they start their journey or when they are already into the business, the simple steps, and one needs to get into more details, but the simple steps which they need to start doing is first have their purpose defined and have ESG embedded into the business activities and decision making. It is not necessary to have entire KPIs, but select the KPIs which are more applicable to their businesses, KPIs for environment, KPIs for social factors, and KPI around governance factors. We all know that Indian law already caters to governance through Companies Act, some of the sections in the Companies Act, and there is corporate social responsibilities also, which is already there at present. So some of these are already probably driven by the companies, and some other factors on environment and social factors, if you start embedding and have their goal settings towards it, the organizations would walk on the path of value creation. Again, these goal settings are done, which is to be achieved over a period of time. And it is always appreciated that the goals which are set is, achieved maybe in 3 years or 5 years. No one says that, that those goals has to be achieved in 1 year's time. So it is very clear that, organizations should walk on the path towards value creation through ESG. And there is a class of investors who would probably, invest in this. They will attract capital, whether it is equity or whether it is debt. There is an interesting instruments which is now coming up in terms of, sustainability linked bonds or, so that entire, class of, capital is coming up in this country too. So broadly, I would say that, this is the, path on which organizations can walk.
Great. Thank you so much. I can really see that the options open for the entrepreneurs or the startup is very many, and option of fundraise through responsible investment, impact investment is increasing. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for sharing that information with us. So I'm trying to change some gear. We see that a lot of things are happening. outside, and we see that this COP26, one of the larger event around this climate change space and sustainability is around the corner in the November, happening in Glasgow. So I just want to touch upon that, Dave. What is that should we expect from governments of the world, and how do we relate? It's a large event which is happening every year. It happens with the startups, entrepreneurs, and the professionals like us. What is that we should expect? Is there any advice we want to give to the leaders and governments of the world through this forum?
Yeah, I think what has been missing from my perspective is the innovation and the ability for some of these younger startups, some of these rapid scale businesses like Allbirds Shoes, to bring learnings to the world, because some of these problems have already been solved. And a lot of the world leaders are just unaware of this. So they're still trying to recreate and dot I's and cross T's on a perfect plan, which has already been solved by a lot of the entrepreneurial and innovation society. There's, you've probably seen the politicians, the chalk drawing on the pavement of politicians discussing climate change, which is a famous piece of artwork, and it's showing them all discussing this as the sea levels are up around their neck. And I think that's one of the lessons that I'm hoping to bring to COP26 this year, is in my participation, is opening the opportunity for innovation to flourish and supporting the innovation to flourish. Otherwise, if we try and rely on policy to solve this globally, I think we've lost the battle. We need to rely on a combination of policy supporting investment, policy supporting innovation, and policy rewarding consumer behaviour to adapt to this sustainability at the pace that we need it to, because otherwise we will never reach our goals. Traditionally governments never reach their goals, and so why would we rely on COP26 to solve this for the world? It's business leaders with practical knowledge that need to come front and centre.
Yeah, I mean, and then there is a sensitive issue, and if you have a view on that, is about the technology transfer. There is an innovation, and probably I agree that some of the problem was solved, but then what the entrepreneur or innovator, he has done something, he has spent his life's knowledge to solve the problem, what he gains out of it. So I believe the technology transfer mechanism at a global scale is also something which get discussed. I have not seen great outcomes of that. So how do you have any relation between them, innovation, and how the technology transfer to larger scale is possible, or how it can happen, taking clue from the leaders of the globe when they discuss and talk about it?
It's a massive challenge, because when you look at a lot of the investment behind this technology, you've got a number of investors who are relying on a financial return rather than a business return. So it's a delicate balance between being able to supply this technology to the world at an affordable price to be able to scale it, and doing well business-wise, and actually giving it away, because otherwise you'll curb investment in this technology as well. So you've got to be able to take investors on a journey that brings both financial returns as well as impact returns. However, it's the adoption by governments of this technology and the support of governments for this technology that really will help to scale it into the world.
Agree. Couldn't agree with more. And Bradley, you are anyway jumping in, so your views, please, on the same question.
Well, just to agree that Dave, that it's a massive challenge. The threat is, right, that if you open it up too much, then you curb innovation right at the source too, right? And reduce incentives to come up with something new and transformative in the first place. So, I mean, and you're seeing this with the vaccines right now for COVID, right? This is happening right in front of our eyes, right? That real issues around the intellectual property of the biggest names, and there are different angles to this, and none of them are necessarily, override the other. But one thing that, I've worked on the policy side and more with government leaders in my roles in the UN. So I know absolutely, and I agree with Dave in the sense that regulations are great and targets are great. And in some countries, regulations work better than others to push markets and push things in the right direction. But that's, it's much more effective when it comes from sort of the ground up and from the entrepreneurs themselves, I think. But going back to this issue of intellectual property, it would be interesting if like at that sort of COP26 level, or WEF or whatever level, World Economic Forum level, could sort of figure out a new kind of regime for intellectual property that is focused on sustainability writ large, right?
Absolutely.
Like how do we come up with a new way of thinking about intellectual property as a collective, as a humankind, to just focusing on sustainability types of innovations, right? That really breakthroughs.
Absolutely, and probably followed by some fund as well to support them. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
So coming back to Hemal, do you have any view or suggestions on kind of same question related to COP26?
Oh, so I think it's fine, but just to add to the Bradley's point in terms of intellectual property for sustainability, and with the financial mind I would say the valuations of companies are more than 70 to 80% companies are valued based on the intangible factors and not the tangible factors, right? So that's so important. What you have in balance sheet is just 20-30% what a company is, and everything else is intangible. So it's important that we have a framework around focus around IPs and work on measures which more intangible, which caters to the sustainability factors.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. We are almost reaching our time. So, if I have been asking questions, but, since this is very intense kind of a discussion, any afterthoughts from any one of you, anything that I should have asked, but I missed asking, happy to hear your views. So
I would, Chaitanya, just say that, some of the questions, sometimes we keep on getting, based on experience and, you as well as, we serve in this, to clients, that sustainability and profitability and valuation, everything can go hand in hand. It can coexist. And that is the confidence which probably, we can, give to the audience over here that, moving on the right path with futuristic view can generate value for the stakeholders.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. Any closing view from you, Bradley?
Well, maybe I go back to what I opened with, is that I hope that this summit helps us get to the point where we're not thinking about sustainability as a market opportunities or market niche or a short-term trend, but rather this is the future. This is what we need to gear business at all levels, towards finding these solutions for a better, more promising world. So that's where I hope this discussion goes, right? That it becomes mainstream. Or not even mainstream, just becomes
core of it, actually.
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So over to you, Dave. Any quick remark from your side? Just closing.
This is when we talk about our clients, the business clients who are embracing sustainability, and we're helping them to prove that impact, as well as providing voluntary offsetting options at the point of sale, like for Etihad Airways, their customers are becoming more loyal because of the track and trace level of transparency. And that proof of impact is really important. That long-term impact and meaningful impact is really important. And just like their customers that we're helping, our investors are also attracted to that. So we do actually find it quite easy when we've got that proof of impact that is very genuine and very tangible. We find it actually very easy to attract the right investors to us. So I believe we are moving in the right direction here, and it's the slower moving funds, it's the slower moving corporates that are going to find themselves in 3 to 5 years' time well behind some newer, faster growing businesses and funds.
Absolutely. So thanks. I think we are almost there on the time. So thank you, gentlemen. It was really pleasure interacting with you. I learned a lot. We understand, the problem is large. The problem is not large. It's a mammoth. And 1 hour discussion probably is just nothing in front of that. But still, your views are really significantly important. And we talked about several things, starting from what it makes sense and how does an entrepreneur or an enterprise or a startup should define it with the purpose, and several other aspects that we talked about. I'm sure our listener, similar to me, would gain, or have got benefited from this. Once again, thank you so much, and it was pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you.
So I'll pass it over to the I'll pass it over to the organizers. Thank you so much.